Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the League of Women Voters of St. Lucie County Candidate Forum for the Supervisor of Elections. My name is Andy Poley, and I am the current president of your local League of Women Voters. Before we get started, I want to give you a little insight into the forum you're going to view tonight. The League of Women Voters is the legacy of the women's suffrage movement. After 75 years of struggle and marches and arrests and conventions and sacrifices as tragic as death, the obstacles to voting created by gender were removed on August 26th of 1920, 100 years ago. As that date approached, our founder, Carrie Chapman Catt, realized that the 20 million women that would soon earn this right would need support and guidance, and therefore founded a nonpartisan group, the League of Women Voters. Our mission has always been to protect the rights of all voters and to ensure the sacred nature of our democratic process. As such, the questions you hear this evening are rooted in our deep commitment to an understanding of the election process. In other words, this is the forum to watch for this race, and we are thrilled to have you here with us this evening. So I have a couple of other things that I need to share with you as well. And if you have joined us for other forums, you've seen this, so I'm going to share it with you again because tonight is even more special. Early voting started today, and we hope that you are all getting ready to either early vote or send in your mail-in ballots that you've already received. You can mail your mail-in ballots back. We suggest you do so right away so that they are received by Election Day, August 18th, 7 p.m., so that they are counted. If you don't want to mail them back, you don't have to. You can drop them off at an early voting location that you see on your screen. There are 5 of them. There are secure ballot box deliveries that you can make at those locations or any of the Supervisor of Elections sites and locations across the county. Election Day itself is August 18th. If you choose to vote on Election Day because it is your tradition, you will have to vote at your precinct polling place. If you don't know where that is, please visit the Supervisor's website at slcelections.com. We also encourage everyone to check us out at our website, lwvslc.org, and learn a little bit about the League of Women Voters and why the 100th anniversary is such a big deal for all of us. And visit vote411.org to learn more about these candidates and all the candidates on your ballots. The questions on Vote 411 will differ from those that you'll hear this evening, so you'll learn more about these candidates and all the other ones and become an even more educated voter. It is also, the census is active. If you have not completed your census, please do so right away and save a census worker the trip to your house.
Integrity.
And so on to our forum. Tonight, as I stated, we'll be hearing from the candidates from Supervisor of Elections for St. Lucie County. The format for tonight's forum is similar to those of previous forums. Each candidate will have a 90-second introduction and followed by a series of questions for which they will have 2 minutes apiece to answer. And at the end of those questions, if we have time and have received questions from our Facebook audience, we will present those questions. And then after those questions, the candidates will have 2-minute closing statements. The order of candidates was randomly selected earlier and will rotate as the questions go through. This is not a debate. These candidates will answer their questions, make their statements, and we'll move on to the next candidate or question. There's no invoking one candidate or another. They will be alerted at 30 seconds remaining in their time and again at the end of their time. So if you see a flash on the screen, that's what that is. Sometimes you don't get to see the signal that they get. Our moderator for this forum and all of our forums so far is Carol Wyatt. Carol is the co-owner and operator of local radio stations WPSL in Port St. Lucie, WSTU in Stewart, WJNX in Fort Pierce. She is the president of WPSL Christmas Kids of St. Lucie County, past president of the Rotary Club of Port St. Lucie, and a member of the Port St. Lucie Businesswomen. Carol has many years in broadcasting, including as a reporter in Los Angeles prior to moving to Florida in 1993. We are honored to have her as our candidate forum moderator again tonight and for all the years that we've had her. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Carol.
Well, thank you, and certainly welcome to this, our sixth League of Women Voters of St. Lucie County Candidate Forum for 2020. The members of the League have developed the questions. We thank the candidates for participating with us tonight, and we especially thank all of you for watching and for listening and making the effort to inform yourselves, because this has been a very difficult year. But let's get started. Supervisor of Elections for St. Lucie County is a term of 4 years. It is a county-wide race. And our candidates are the incumbent Gertrude Walker and the challenger Sheritta Johnson. We'll begin with opening statements, and we begin with Sheritta Johnson.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Carol. It's good to see you again. League of Women Voters, thank you all for putting this forum on. I am Sheritta Johnson, your candidate for St. Lucie County Supervisor of Elections. I'm a native of St. Lucie County, born to the late Freeman Davis, who was a veteran and a City of Fort Pierce police officer. And most of you, if you've done your research, some of this stuff you already know. My mom is a retired nutrition specialist here in St. Lucie County. I graduated Fort Pierce Westwood High School in 1987. I completed my AA degree from Indian River State College. It was then Indian River Community College. I received my bachelor's and my master's from Palm Beach Atlantic University. I'm currently the risk manager for the City of Fort Pierce. And I'm just honored to be here with you on this evening. I sit on several boards. United Way is one board that I sit on, United Against Poverty, Portofino Shores HOA, but really I just want to share with you why I'm running for Supervisor of Elections. The main reason I'm running for Supervisor of Elections is this. One, our voter turnout for many, many years has been less than 27%. With 92.7% of registered voters, they're already registered to vote. The other is to bridge the generational divide. Okay, that's big to me. Modernize and bring transparency to the Supervisor of Elections office is what I would like to do. And along with that is to foster new business partnerships within the community. So I am Sheritta Davis Johnson, your candidate for St. Lucie County Supervisor of Elections. Thank you.
An opening statement, Gertrude Walker.
I'm Gertrude Walker, candidate for re-election to the office of St. Lucie County Supervisor of Elections, and I'm delighted to be here. I want to thank Carol and Addie and all of the League of Women Voters for the many years that they have worked to inform our voters. I've been proud to be a member for many, many years. I go back, probably get to the 80s with the League, and I realize that they are a treasure to our community, and I'm just so pleased to work with them. But I'm running for office because I feel that I am the most qualified candidate for this position. I've lived in St. Lucie County for all of my adult life. I came here in 1962. And so I've been here my whole life. I've raised my family. I have four adult children that I've raised, and I have 4 grandchildren. I'm married to Charles Walker. He is a highwayman, and we painted together early in the career before I became Supervisor of Elections. So I have deep roots in St. Lucie County. What I want to say most is important is I have the expertise necessary to run this very highly complex office. I have with my knowledge and my expertise in election administration, that distinguishes me from my opponent. I'm a certified administrator. I am a certified election professional with the state of Florida. I have proven my ability to lead this complex and diverse office. I've run the office with professionalism, and I want to talk about the midterm election. The midterm election is 63% for the general election. It is not 27%. I wanted to clear that up.
Okay, and we will get into a lot of the details as we go on for the evening. Let's go to the first question. We will start with Sheritta Johnson and then rotate after that. Nationwide, voters are concerned about the integrity of their vote. What measures will you take to assure the public that their vote is collected and counted accurately? Ms. Johnson.
So one of the things that I would do, and starting from day one, is to start to streamline the process, do some live streaming. So from the time so let's talk about vote by mail ballot. So a lot of people are really concerned about that. So from the time we actually get the information that we're sending a party who actually mails the ballots out, we're going to start from the beginning. We're going to show the list. These are the vote by mail ballots that have gone to the third party. This is when they've actually mailed them out. so we can take some of the confusion out of it. So people are like, well, what happened to my ballot? What's going on? That's one thing. I would use SLC TV as one of those opportunities to do some live streaming. I would also use Facebook, any type of social media outlet so that people can see the process from beginning to end. So from the time we receive a ballot in, people can see where it's stored. From the time we start looking at comparing the signatures, so people can see that particular process in place, it'll take some of the guesswork out of it so they can trust that it is actually being done accurately and that no one's trying to cheat their vote, okay? It'll bring the more transparency, the more people can trust the process and trust the system. So that's what I would do. That's what I would do going into office from day one so that we can regain the trust of citizens.
For Gertrude Walker, same question. How do you assure the public that their vote is collected accurately?
We can assure the public that their vote is counted accurately simply by the fact that the vote is not tabulated by the Supervisor of Elections. The ballots come into our office in the mail. Those ballots are then, the signatures are verified. We make sure that the voter that actually signed that ballot is the voter, the signature verified, then those ballots are stored. They are also open in front of the Board of County Commissioners. It's a public meeting for everyone. It is invited to that public meeting. And anyone that wants to see the ballots being open as League of Women Voters members, many of you have taken part in the opening of those ballots. Nothing's open until the canvassing board is seated. And all of that information is on my website. On my website, you can see that the canvassing board meets, the date that they meet, when those meetings are held. They're published in the paper as well. But I do believe that the information that the voters need is available. I do believe that more knowledge of the process is important for the voter, and I work to make sure that that happens. And I will continue to do that.
Okay, in a specific case, and we'll come back to Gertrude Walker, following the investigation of Russian involvement in the 2016 election, the FBI reported that 2 counties in Florida were hacked by Russia, although no evidence was found that votes were changed. So how will you ensure that St. Lucie County votes will not be impacted by foreign influence? Gertrude Walker.
One of the things that happened immediately after that was discovered is that the state of Florida, the Secretary of State entered into an agreement with all of the Supervisor of Elections to ensure the safety and security of the vote of St. Lucie County as well as the state of Florida. And so in that partnership, the state is working with every county to ensure that their infrastructure is in place properly, to ensure that they have the proper training. And that is ongoing, and it will remain ongoing for the future. The state has been very proactive. The Secretary of State has been very proactive in making sure. I have to tell y'all that this is the close of the first day of early voting. And so I've had a lot of people, trying to get my attention because I came right back to the office after leaving the precinct. I'm sorry about that. And I'm gonna pay a real close attention and hopefully get my volume off here so you won't be. Okay, sorry about that. And so the state and all 67 Supervisor of Elections signed on to ensure that prior to the 2020 elections, that the citizens of this county, as well as the state of Florida, could be confident that there will be no more intrusion into our systems by the Secretary, the Governor. They made that a priority when Governor DeSantis went into office, and that is ongoing, the training and all of the necessary infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. And that same question to Sheritta Johnson. How do you ensure that our vote is not impacted by foreign influence?
So one of the things that Ms. Walker did say is that the state, they would enter into an agreement with the state. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that agreement as well. The unfortunate part about that agreement to me is none of us know what counties actually was infiltrated, okay? And we say 2, but it's been documented that it's 4. And a part of that agreement is to keep things quiet. So for me, I think transparency is key, okay? There are some protocols that are in place to harden the infrastructure, which is excellent. That is a very good thing that they've hardened the infrastructure. And the truth of the matter is, we got to all be honest. There's nothing in this world that's 100%. And I think if we're fair enough to say that the election process, they've done a good job to try and harden up and safeten up everything, which is really, really good. The other end of that is when there is an intrusion, because it's just like an alarm system, the system that is in place, like the alarm system on your home. It is to alert you that something is going wrong. On the other end, we need to make sure that intrusion actually don't enter. So what we do is make sure the people on the other end, once there's an alert, that they're trained to figure out what area their alarm is in. So it's not just to harden it up and to safeten it up, but it's also to make sure the people on the end of it, that they have the expertise to make sure they can stop that intrusion. So it's a couple things that we have to do to make sure. And I think more than 100% that we do have the staff that's in place that that's knowledgeable and that can make sure that the intrusion does not penetrate the system. So.
Okay, next question. Okay, next question. We come back to Sheritta Johnson. What new technologies will you investigate or use to improve voting procedures in future elections?
Well, there are a couple things that I'd like to do. So one, I think most people are not ready for us to vote by electronic voting 100%, and I get that. So, but some of the things that we can do simply is to update people's signature electronically, okay? Where in lieu of me having to go and fill out these extra things and take these extra steps. So I give an example of that. When we were filling out petitions, the state, because of COVID, allowed us to do petitions online, okay? Where people actually, they were able to sign it. They had to have an email address. It was some protocols and procedures in place to safeten and to make sure there were some checks and balances to make sure the person was who they said they were, okay? And that's something that we can do as far as updating signatures with the Supervisor of Elections office. The other thing, there are some places in California, there's one county in California that has a system in place where you can double check in lieu of us using our eyes to check the signatures. There's a machine that literally checks the signature, okay? And if the signature is not clear, it spits it out on your mail-in ballot, it spits it out, and then you have the eyes. We have people that's gonna take a look at it to see what's what and how we flow through it.
Okay, same question to Gertrude Walker. What new technologies will you investigate or use to improve voting procedures in future elections?
Well, I was listening to Sheritta's statements about the other jurisdiction, and we have that very same system. We have a Ballot Howell mail sorter, and so when the ballot comes in, it actually is checked in by a mail sorter. The signature's clipped, and then those signatures, but we don't use the machine to verify the signatures. We actually use the eyes of our employees to do that. They've been trained by the state of Florida. We've had they get 2 trainings a year to make sure that their signature verification expertise is perfect, so that they're knowledgeable of the process and they do a great job. One of the things that I've done to ensure, and I know that we won't be going to electronic voting. I mean, we won't be going to online voting for a long time. And I do know that the signatures are very important. So once the signature goes through the system, and we determine that it does not match, that voter automatically gets a mailing and an affidavit letting them know that they need to update their signature, and that they have until 2 days after the election to correct that signature to make sure that their vote counts. So we check every signature with our eyes, even though we have a machine that can do that, the same as other counties. And the larger the county, the more they lean to having the machine do all of the signature checking. But as long as we can do it, I feel confident that we're doing the very best check.
Okay, also back to Gertrude Walker for the next question. The current pandemic has raised questions about the ability and safety of voting during a crisis. How will you address elections during and after a crisis such as a hurricane?
Okay, with the pandemic, I want to talk about that a little bit. With the pandemic, we're taking precautions to ensure the safety of the voters. And they have their masks, they have their shields, they have their gloves. We have hired a firm to clean every booth after every voter leaves that, disinfect that booth and make sure that it is safe for the next voter. The pen, everything that the voter touched is disinfected after each voter. We have a stylus for the voter to sign with that's disposable. So they touch the screen with this stylus. So we have made sure that there's a very sanitary condition in the early voting sites as well as in the precincts. So we take it very seriously and they can feel safe to go to the precinct. So I want to talk about that. Now in a hurricane, which we have had many hurricanes and disasters in our state. And one of the things that was apparent from that, and the legislation certainly has gone up to the legislature many times, is to create vote centers so that we would have designated locations in case of a hurricane where the majority of our polling places are destroyed or are unusable, that we would have these vote centers and we would know and have that ready so that we can still go into the election. We had an election here, two hurricanes that came back to back in St. Lucie County, and we had to conduct the election. Between those two hurricanes, we were able to do that. So it's important that we have a safeguard. Precincts already established that are buildings that can withstand the hurricane to ensure that we can continue.
Okay, same question to Sheritta Johnson. How do you address elections during and after a crisis like a hurricane?
Okay. Again, we are in a crisis right now, as most of us know, the COVID, and I can tell you that I actually did vote today, and in that, the machines were cleaned after each person, the booths were cleaned, so forth and so on, which I thought was really good. As far as the stylus part, you use the cotton swab, you use the other end of a little stick that had a cotton swab, but it worked, okay? And it was disposed of, it did work. I had suggested some time ago that we use some of our schools as precincts. And I do understand that that is something that Mr. Gent is actually, he's announced it to the school, to the principals and all of those that are in the system, that because I have family members that work in the system, that Mrs. Walker did reach out to him to say, can we actually do this? And I thought it was really good that they took my suggestion. So having those schools, because the schools are pretty sturdy, we've made it safe where we can actually have use those schools as during hurricane season. I just lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. But use those schools during hurricane seasons. And I think the partnerships that we're actually collaborating and putting together is actually going to make a huge difference. We know that schools are probably some of the safest places that we do have around here in St. Lucie County. So that would definitely be to make the schools, again, as some of the huger precincts where we don't have to worry about having so many different little sites that we can't keep everything accounted for.
Okay, we'll come back to Sheritta Johnson for the next question. Primary and midterm elections have historically had very low turnout nationwide. What do you plan to do to increase voter turnout for elections, especially primary and midterm elections?
So I would say again and again and again, educate, inform. And I know there's some things out on the Supervisor of Elections website where people can actually go and find that information, but we have to go to the people, okay? And I believe us making that available. And when I say go to the people, one, let's have some town hall meetings so that people, how long we're gonna be doing Zoom? We have no idea how long this crisis is gonna be here. So having town hall meetings where we can inform the people, this is what's going on, this is what's coming up. And in order to participate in our upcoming elections, this is what we need. So in all 4 areas of the county, north, south, east, and west, the monies that we have for education, use that to go to the people. And I know we do our voters registration, and I think we can spruce that up some as well, not just going to the events and waiting for people to come to the table, but going to the people, even walking around, engaging the people. How are you? What can we do differently? What can we do? What would you like to see from the Supervisor of Elections office? But I'm going to say education is the key to everything. That is, if we can inform people as to what's going on and how the election process, roundtable discussions, bring it out using social media like crazy. So I think it's very important that we actually have a communication specialist individual where it's not just those that are informed voters, which we know our older generation are more informed voters than the younger generations. We got to start meeting the younger generation where they are so they don't understand what they can contribute and that their vote actually does matter.
Okay, same question to Gertrude Walker. How would you increase turnout for elections, especially primary and midterms?
Well, one of the things I'd like to clear up is the fact that the 27% turnout is statewide. It's just not St. Lucie County. And in fact, midterm elections is about 27% nationwide. So midterm elections, mainly because they are partisan elections where many of the nonpartisan individuals, and we know that that's the fastest growing group of voters in the country, nonpartisan, those people can't participate in it. So these are party elections that we have 27%, but in the same midterm elections, we have 63% turnout in the open election, which is the general election. So it has not been traditionally 27%. 27%. That's all I hear. But that is a number that can get people excited and maybe try to create an issue when there's no issue to it. Voters vote in midterm elections. They're partisan elections for the primary, and in the general, they turn out at least 63%. And so there are a lot of things that we can do to inform the voters, and misconceptions is one that I think that is important that we, and the media, I think the Facebook is a very good media to put that out to the voters. I think that we should do that. I use my Facebook to put information out to the voters about the election process, and I've always done that. And I think that the biggest thing, the most important thing is that we have valid and valid elections that can be audited and can be validated. And that's what builds confidence in the people.
Okay, next question. Go back to Gertrude Walker. Generation Z, which is 10 to 25-year-olds, is quickly becoming recognized as the most politically active generation since the baby boomers. Very aware of social, environmental, political issues, and are routinely voicing their opinions. Now, although some are not voting yet, they soon will be. So how do you intend to increase their understanding and commitment to voting and to the election process?
Well, I think it's important that we always start early with young people. And I've made a commitment from the beginning of my career to make sure that the schools was very important, and that I had a partnership going with the schools to give me that opportunity to go into the elementary schools, to go into the middle schools, to go into the high schools. And so that is where we need to start. The state of Florida has recognized the importance of that in establishing mock elections for the schools. And so we participate in mock elections. We make sure that students have that opportunity. They have school elections in order to vote for their classmates. We have an online system for elementary school students to vote within their own schools, and to make sure that they have that opportunity to learn the process from elementary, middle school, and then high school. And we have a program in high school to educate the students on the process of voting, also on the enfranchisement process, why it's important that they vote. And yes, it's 15-minute video. Yes, it's about a 20-minute conversation. We can't spend the day there, but what we do, we hear so much good information from the parents and from those students having that opportunity in the schools. So I do believe we start early. We're building a more advanced electorate by starting early.
Okay, same question. Back to Sheritta Johnson. How to increase the understanding and commitment to voting by Generation Z?
I agree with Ms. Walker. You start with them young. And I think that what we can do is a partnership with the parents as well. We already know that as far as education, some of it starts in the home. We know that for a lot of people that are disenfranchised or the underserved people, community that we have, they may not get it as quickly as those that are in more affluent neighborhoods or more affluent schools. So not only do we start with the schools and the younger people, we involve the parents as well. We involve the parents with bring the books. Here are the 3 books or the 4 books that your students are going to actually be voting on. What do you think about it? Have them engage with their child on these books. What do these books mean to you? What does it look like to you? And make sure when they're young, they're books of interest to them, that they understand what the books are, what they're engaging. And when we start to matriculate to the middle school area, some of the things that we can do as well. And then if we encourage the parents to bring, let me rewind. If we encourage the parents to bring the students or their child to the precinct with them, I think that's very, very good. Even if they don't go to the precinct and they vote by mail, really engage, let them be engaged as to, this is what this is. This is what this, some students, and I'm gonna tell you, and it breaks my heart, some of the parents, some of the students have never seen a ballot and don't know what a ballot is, okay? So middle school, we do the same thing. We start engaging the parents. Make sure that it's not just a school thing, because a lot of times once the students leave, that's it. High school, I think we need to do a better job informing the students that most of the times when they register as NPAs. And I can tell you a situation that I had where a young lady was leaving the poll during the March, the presidential primary, and she was very, very upset and said that she would not participate again. That, we had the Supervisor of Elections office, they came in, we watched the video, and we registered. I registered to vote, but not understanding that I could not vote in the presidential primary election. So some of the things that we can do a little differently is come in early, give the information on all the parties, and then from there, give it to the parents so the parents can see what's going on and they can make an educated decision when we come back into the schools and show that video, and then they can determine at that point how they actually want to vote.
Thank you. We move on to our next question, and we'll come back to Sheritta Johnson. If elected, what are your top 3 priorities for the Supervisor of Elections office?
So my top 3 priorities, number 1 is when it comes to individuals or I call it our human capital, to make sure that our staff is good, make sure they're in a good place, make sure there is true cross training, make sure we have SOPs in place. So if 2 or 3 people are out or life happens to any of us, because we're gonna pass on one day, that we have those procedures in place and everyone knows that anyone can pick it up and continue with it, okay? So it's gonna be to make sure we're investing in our human capital for number 1, all right? The second is make sure we talked about increased voter turnout. I am definitely serious about increasing voter turnout, because I think the more people that participate in our elections, it represents who we are as a community. The more well-informed, it represents who we truly are as a community. And for me, that's very important. Know that if people's voice are being heard and if people actually know that they have a voice to be heard. And then the third priority would be to bring transparency to the Supervisor of Elections office. And again, that would be some of the basic things. Some people don't understand that when they're upset with the Supervisor of Elections office, and there's plenty of times that I said, listen, you got to understand, no one was prepared for this pandemic. Okay, no one. There was nothing on anyone's radar saying that this is going to happen at this time. So the SOE's office is doing the best they can. You think about the turnout as far as the request for voters, that is a lot on the Supervisor of Elections office. So what we can do in that aspect is show people from beginning to end what's going on. So those are going to be my top 3 priorities.
Okay, same question to Gertrude Walker. What are your top 3 priorities for the Supervisor of Elections office?
Well, one of my top priorities is to ensure that should we have another pandemic, I've had to close a number of precincts because of the size of those precincts. Social distancing guidelines must be followed in every precinct. And so one of the things that I started to work on immediately, and in fact, I worked with the Supervisor of Elections to make recommendations to the governor to ensure that the governor was aware of the problems that we were having based on the pandemic. And one of the things was that we do not have adequate polling places and that we needed to have our schools. And it needs to be a statewide initiative, not just a county initiative. Now, I did go immediately to our superintendent. I've been working with him on that issue. And of course, he made preparation immediately. I sent this to him back in July, let him know what schools I would be using and which ones I would be needing. And so he made possible for us to have our schools closed on November the 3rd so that we can have access to those larger facilities. And that's one of my goals, is to make sure that that statewide initiative is passed by our legislative delegation. I will work with them to ensure that that's the case, because what that will do is give us the opportunity to have high school students serve as poll workers, to be able to get educated in the process. The teachers can serve as well as their support staff, and that during this pandemic, one of the groups that is the most affected is the group that are poll workers, our elderly, and they're asked to serve. So we need to open up that opportunity, and this will certainly do that for us. And that's one of my main priorities.
Okay, now I understand we have some questions from our Facebook audience. And let me see here. I just need to, here we go. Now I just need to bring them up. Now, a question from Carol, who is watching on Facebook. What efforts will you put forth toward voter education and engagement? And we'll go back over this territory with Gertrude Walker.
What efforts in voter education and engagement will I institute? Voter education has been a priority for me ever since I became supervisor of elections. And one of the things that I do think is most important is to get out into the community and make sure that I'm at every event that is going on in any community. And so by doing that, as I've said before, we have almost 93% of the voting age citizens registered to vote in St. Lucie County, which is a great accomplishment. And so my voter education program, I'm very pleased with that, but I believe that we can never educate enough. And so one of the initiatives that I want to work towards is making sure that we engage more with organizations within the communities. We have to work with the community organizations. And so that's one of my initiatives, that I'm going to be going into all of those meetings of those community organizations to make sure that they get the information that they need in order to, and it takes a lot. I've worked with the league on this, on the high school voter registration. I plan to work with the league on that, to get those voices in there and to educate into the community, into the meetings, so that we can be there where they will be gathering to get that information to them. We have so many homeowners associations.
Okay, if we move on to Sheritta Johnson, what would you do for voter education to further that?
So some of the things that I think that we can do is, again, I said have town hall meetings is very important. I think we can do some more, the way we engage the public is going to be totally different with the pandemic going on. So have some Zoom meetings, have some community outreach meetings where the public can actually ask the questions that they want to ask. Town hall, I'm saying that is very, very important. So what I would like to do is see the older, more seasoned generation sit down and have some roundtable discussions, because we can use their wisdom and their knowledge and then get the younger generation at the table as well. So roundtable is going to be very important moving forward. Where the younger generations, we know they have the zeal, they have the passion, but the oldest seasoned generation can actually, their wisdom and knowledge, so they can teach them some things. So we won't say that they're just running with nothing, but we're actually informing them, where we each can learn from one another. Come to the table, let's have some really good discussion, and no one's going to judge the other, because we have the younger generation that may think a little differently because they haven't experienced as much as some of us have experienced. They haven't experienced a lot of life. We talked about the 10-year-old to the 5-year-old. So they haven't experienced a lot of life just yet. But if we get the foundation in them, they'll go and we can reach the honors of the supervisory elections really, really far by doing those. So town hall discussions, roundtable discussions, I think is going to be very important to move forward in increasing voter turnout.
Okay, we have another question from our Facebook audience. This question from Ryan. What are your plans for future offices for the Supervisor of Elections throughout the county? We'll come back to Sheritta Johnson.
Will you repeat the question? I'm sorry, Carol.
What are your plans for future offices for the Supervisor of Elections throughout the county?
And are we talking about offices as far as building? We're talking about polling offices. If we're talking about offices as far as building, I think at this point with the locations that we have, that we definitely have an adequate amount of offices that we have in this. We have one in Port St. Lucie and one in Fort Pierce. I think that's an adequate amount of offices to have. Now, as far as polling locations, then that's going to be a different story.
The question seems to be offices. Yeah, the question seems to be.
So if it's regular offices, I think the offices that we have are adequate enough. I know at one point we were trying to, and I was on board with Mrs. Walker getting a larger building. So maybe in the future they can get a larger building where everyone can be housed in one place. I'm not sure if that's in the budget. Right now, we don't know what the COVID is going to weigh on the budget. So at this point, I don't have a definitive answer for that just yet.
Okay, same question to Gertrude Walker. Your plans for future offices for around the county?
Well, currently we have 4 office locations in the county. We have one in the tax collector's office in the traditions area, which is one of the newest areas of the county. We also have an office down on Walton Road in the tax collector building as well, which is the county administrative annex building. We have one on St. Lucie West, off St. Lucie West Boulevard on Country Club Drive. So we have 4 locations, 3 down in Port St. Lucie, and then we have the one here in St. Lucie at the mall for the North St. Lucie County. So we do have all 4 locations. I do feel that the county has a plan, and I don't know what's going to happen with COVID and the budget, but I think the county has a plan, or the county commission, to consolidate all of the counties in a location where it would be convenient for the voters, so that when they went to one county office, they would be able to go to all county offices and not have to go one place for the tax collector, one place for the property appraiser, one place for the supervisor of elections. That's really not public service. And I think that the public deserves to have offices where they can go one place and get all of their services. And I believe that is on the table for the county. When they'll be able to do it, I do not know, but I know they're planning that. But right now, I think we have enough offices to serve the county.
Okay, we have more questions from our audience watching on Facebook. Let's see, from Mel. How will you, we'll come back to Gertrude Walker. How will you ensure that the public has eyes on the process during the post-election audit to promote transparency and increase trust?
Now, is this question for me?
Yes.
The post-election audit, of course, actually, I'm a pioneer in that area. After the 2012 election, I started out a company they call Clear Ballot to do an audit of that election to ensure that the results of that election was accurate. And so afterwards, of course, I contacted the company. They came in, they did a 100% audit of the system. Since that 2012, that has become a state certified audit system for the state. And I was one of the pioneers working with them to ensure that that system got certified by the state. It has been certified. It is still in use, and it is used by 10 counties now in the state of Florida. The legislature this year passed a law that would make that audit system the recount system for the entire state of Florida. So that audit system is an open meeting. Anyone can come to the audit and anyone can be educated on that process. It's an open meeting for the public. The candidates are noticed of it, as well as it's noticed on my website. it's out there for everyone. And it is a public meeting. And remember that every meeting that the supervisor of elections has, counting your ballots, processing your ballots, auditing the election, testing the equipment, all are open meetings where the public is welcome to attend.
Okay, all right, we'll go back to Sheritta Johnson for the same. How will you ensure the public has eyes on the process during that post-election audit? Sheritta Johnson.
So one of the things that I think is important, because we know right now we're in the middle of a pandemic. So again, I think if we use some type of live streaming so people can see it, we can practice social distancing, we can still be safe. We can just making it open to the public. We've got to think outside the box at this point. Our traditional way in doing it, yes, inviting the public in and allowing them to see it. We don't have the spacing for that now to make sure that we're doing the social distancing. So use SLC TV to have them to broadcast it. Let them show that live streaming. Use your social media areas where it's live streamed that way. We've got to do some things differently. The way we've had, listen, change is here. We haven't had a choice with this pandemic. No one was prepared for this. So it's like the things that we didn't think that we can do prior to the pandemic, we've been forced to do it. So I think something as simple as live streaming the process would make it a lot easier than trying to say, well, it's too many people here, so you're going to turn people away, and then it's going to make them more frustrated. They're not going to think that we're hiding things when, in essence, we're not hiding anything. So live streaming the process, I think, should be one of the options.
Okay, we have more questions coming from our Facebook audience, and let's see. Usually, supervisor of election have 10 days. We'll be starting with Sheritta Johnson. Usually, supervisor of election have 10 days rather than 30 to certify an election. In cases where races are close or there is a recount, it's difficult to meet the deadline. While different requests have been made for greater lengths of time in tight recount races to be allowed, often the voting public grows anxious and speculative concerning confidence in the process around certification of voting. It depends on the length of time it takes to certify. Besides asking the Secretary of State to lengthen the amount of time, what would you each do to build voter confidence around legal certification of elections and the process around recounts and tight election races? Long question there. Starts with Sheritta Johnson. Sheritta?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, there we go.
Okay, thank you. All right, sorry about that. I would say it may sound far-fetched to ask the state to give some extension in this pandemic, being that we've gotten so many vote by mail ballots. I think it's fair, honestly. I think it's fair to say that we may need to ask for an extension so that things are done. Here's the thing, we all want our election process, everything to be accurate and fair, and so, but I don't know that we're really looking at the entire process from beginning to end. If we have 50, 60, however many thousand vote by mail ballots, and they have to be where the I's are being laid to compare the signatures, we've got to, on that front, we got to understand that's going to take time. And then to certify at the end, I think for the Supervisor of Elections Office, I think we need to be a little more lenient and be a little more fair so that we can get things done right and accurately. And if it needs a little more, we need a little more time. And those up and down the state of Florida, they've complained about that. Supervisor of Elections have complained about that for years, that they feel more rushed in lieu of having the adequate time to process the certifications the way they would like to, and the audits the way they would like to. So for me at this point, I don't have, other than the fact that we may have to ask for an extension to get it done properly.
Okay, same question to Gertrude Walker. Long question, but as things drag out, how do you keep public confidence?
Well, the certification, the certifying of the election has been probably Florida has one of the shortest of all the other states. Some states have a 30-day window after the election in order to make sure that things are counted accurately. Rushing does not always give you the best result. And I think that the time needs to be lengthened. It does need to be lengthened. In St. Lucie County, because I'm a medium-sized county, I can get it done. But that's not the same for Broward or Dade, where they have 1 million voters and they have 10 times the votes of a county like St. Lucie to get the same thing done and to get it counted accurately. So we need to be cognizant of the fact, because we're having problems every election, that ought to give us an idea that there is not sufficient time to get it done. Once the legislature wakes up to that and gives us the extended time, you will see that we will not have so many crisis every time a major election, a presidential election come, and then several supervisors are removed from office because they can't get their ballots counted. And I think it's sad for our state, knowing that this happens every time, that the legislature is not cognizant of the problem. Lengthen the time so that we can get it done accurately. And we do need more time. We do need more time to do our job correctly.
Okay, well, let's go back to our Facebook audience. We have more questions for us. Question from Fallon: what are your plans for increasing voter registration among returning citizens? Gertrude Walker.
One of the things we've been kind of disappointed with the ups and downs in the courts with that process since Amendment 4 was passed by the voters of the state of Florida, and the returning citizens are pretty much in a limbo right now. But one of the things that I worked on many years ago with our clerk of the court, because the returning citizens need the facts. They need to have their own court records, even to apply for their to get their citizenship returned to them so that they can be an active citizen, their voting rights returned. They have to have all of the documents, all of their court documents. And I worked with the clerk of the court, and he said, set it up so that any one of those individuals who are returning citizens can go to the clerk of the court and they can get those documents free of charge to assist them in gaining their citizenship. And that is available to them today because of the efforts of me working with the clerk of the court, Joe Smith, to make sure that that was possible for them, because they're going to have to work in the same system that they did prior to Amendment 4 right now, where they have to get those documents. They have to file with the clemency board in order to ensure that they are qualified, and they have to have the facts of their sentencing to determine if they have completed all the terms. Many are ready, but many don't even know.
Okay, same question to Sheritta Johnson, increasing registration among returning citizens.
So I would definitely have to agree that they're definitely in limbo at this particular juncture in the road, where the voice of the people was heard, but it was not enacted. So we know that that's where we are with that, which is very unfair to those that have served their time. Okay, it's like it's a double jeopardy thing, which shouldn't be the case, but it is. So we do know that the clerk of court has agreed to provide them the documents, and a lot of people don't realize that they're already free and clear. So just an inquiry would actually help a lot of them realize that, you know what, you are free. You're good to do it. Your fines are paid. You've already made your debt to society, so you can go ahead and register to vote. So I think when we're talking to them and explaining to them, listen, here's what we're going to do. I want you to take this step first. Go to the clerk of courts. He's already agreed to give you your information, your documentation, and then you'll see that, listen, are you eligible to vote? Or are you not? And at that particular point, and I think that's what we need to do going forward, is really just to inform the returning citizens. A lot of them don't know. They think that, some don't even know about Amendment 4. And I'm gonna be very honest with you. It's like, oh, so at one point you're saying that there was a vote that was passed and over 60%, voted to get yes, but here's where we are right now. So the information, informing them and educating them and literally telling them the next step and what they can do, I think that's going to help increase the voters registration among our returning citizens.
Okay, thank you. And now we go to Andy Pulley, because there are more questions from Facebook.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah, we have a couple of quick questions for the candidates. The first one is kind of a yes or no question. So from Bob, would you consider an office back where the Civic Center and the administrative buildings for the county actually are, and therefore closing your mall location? We'll start with Ms. Walker, I think. Is she the first time? Nope, it would be Ms. Johnson this time, isn't it? So
Okay.
Ms. Johnson,
Mhm.
the question being kind of a yes or no question. Would you consider moving your offices closer to the county administration buildings by the Civic Center in Fort Pierce, by the Fence Center?
By the Fence Center, I would, that's a pretty good location. It's centrally located for the people that are in Fort Pierce. So it's easy. It's easy to get to. It's right off of 25th. It's right off of US 1. It's easy to get to. But yes, that would be a consideration if the space is there.
Thank you. Ms. Walker, same question.
My office was located in that building for many years, and it was determined that they did not have the space necessary for the supervisor of elections. And so that's why I had to go out looking for adequate space, and I ended up out at the Orange Blossom Business Center, which was, of course, the Orange Blossom Mall. The county did plan to build a building for the supervisor of elections right there on the property next to the Civic Center. Which we had the plans, the architecture plans, we were moving toward it, and the county made up their mind in the middle of that to say, well, we can't afford to build a building. So I'm still here at the mall, but certainly the county having all of the facilities for the public in one location, as I said before, is so ideal for serving the citizens. It's just that that building is not big enough to accommodate all of the offices. And that's why you see the sheriff in one place, and the tax collector, and the property appraiser, and everybody. Property appraiser is still there, but all of them, of course, had to kind of venture out to have enough room to do their job. So as I said, I believe it's on the drawing board for many years to come. A central location, maybe around Midway Road, they've been talking about, to put all of the county buildings together so that all services will be, and I think that would be ideal. I think it's true public service to make it convenient.
Far out.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so then the next question is kind of a current question. So I'm going to rephrase it a little bit. It's from Karen. You had quite a bit of mail-in ballot or absentee ballot requests this year in comparison to previous years. If people really like it, they might go ahead and do it again. So if you're going to have that many or that huge of an increase in the request for mail-in ballots, how quickly will you start counting them? So we start with Ms. Walker this time.
Well, in anticipation, during the pandemic, the governor, of course, gave us the authority to begin counting 24 days prior to the election, and of course, relax the number of laws to allow us to do that. And so we have additional time. But I'm sure legislation after this pandemic is over, that the legislature will be looking at extending that time based on the fact that more voters are going towards vote by mail in this pandemic. And we don't know if it may come again. So we'll have that option, hopefully, to move it out 24 or to come back to the regular time in order to, so that we'll have those options. We can either start later or we can start earlier based on the number. We've sent out about 62,000 ballots. So we've got a lot of ballots out there, and I'm anxious for the voters to get those ballots back in so that they can be counted and ready on election day so that we can release the results.
Ms. Johnson, same question.
Can you repeat that question, please?
I can repeat that question. There's been an increase in the request for mail-in ballots or absentee ballots due to the pandemic, but if people really like it, you might see this kind of increase in the future. How long will you wait before you start, once you start receiving the mail-in ballots, will you begin to count them to ensure that they are all counted in time?
Very good, very good. As Ms. Walker has shared with you all, that the state has legislated, like they've allowed and relaxed a lot of the laws, which is beautiful. I think going forward that we're going to have to do a lot more looking into what we can do differently, even down to sending the ballots out a little bit earlier so that it give people a little more time to get the ballots in, which will give us more time to count them. So definitely, I would request to have an extension, have it extended, doing more days, because I think if given, if it's excellent service this time around, you're going to find people that they're actually trusting the system. So I think that's what we can do to ask for more days. Definitely ask for more days.
Thank you very much. And Carol, that wraps up our Facebook feed. We got everybody in, which is really great. So we can move on to closing arguments. Thank you. Or closing statements, not arguments. This is not, we're not in court. Closing statements. Thank you.
Okay, and by our rotation, we'd come back to Sheritta Johnson for closing statements.
Okay, so thank you all so very much for your time. I really appreciate it, and for your questions. They were very insightful. Some were a little challenging, but I appreciate that as well. So I would say to say that this moment calls for change would be, I would say, incomplete to a certain extent. No one actually planned for this moment. In the midst of the pandemic, I think that, and I'm just going to say it, I think that it begs for change at this particular point. Some of the things that we didn't think that we can do it. We can do it now. Our democracy can only work if voters are informed, if they are encouraged, and if they are empowered. I don't know what my computer is doing. Uh-oh, can you see me now?
Yes, you're on and we can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think that it's important that St. Lucie County at this time, that our democracy can only work if elected leaders who embody change are actually in seat at this particular point. And it's going to make a huge difference. So at this point, I'm going to ask you, I humbly ask you for your vote for change, the change you can trust. And this is Sheritta Davis Johnson, your candidate for St. Lucie County Supervisor of Elections. Thank you.
Thank you. And Gertrude Walker, closing statement.
I believe that the most important thing is to make sure that you have someone in this office that have the experience and the expertise to do the job. That is an innovator, that is not waiting for something to happen, but is always looking for ways to make things better for the operation of the election. I've been on the legislative committees. I've worked with the laws to ensure that our laws are changed so that they can accommodate the needs. So I am an innovator. I'm a worker. I'm qualified. I've served you for 39 years. I have the excitement, energy, enthusiasm to continue serving you. And I ask that you consider Gertrude Walker and vote for Gertrude Walker because of the experience, expertise, and knowledge. I've served on national boards. I've served on federal boards as far as elections are concerned. I've been trusted. I think you can trust St. Lucie County Supervisor of Elections, Gertrude Walker, to continue to do the job for you, the right choice for St. Lucie County.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both for participating today, Gertrude Walker and Sheritta Johnson. And certainly we want to thank everyone for watching this. Thank the members of the League of Women Voters for developing the questions, and as they were described, insightful questions, certainly. And thank you for being with us. Andy?
Thank you, Carol, and thank you, candidates, for joining us this evening. We want to thank the members for their questions. As I stated earlier in our forum, the League of Women Voters takes elections and our democracy and voting and voter rights very, very seriously. And so questions for these particular candidates were going to be a bit more intense than other questions. We are so glad that you were able to join us. Thank you to the Facebook audience for your lively participation this evening. And we hope that you will follow us on Facebook so you'll learn about any upcoming forums that we have, and you can see our previously aired forums on our YouTube channel, LWV St. Lucie County. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night. Don't forget to vote.
Yes.